Hope that you're doing well out here in these streets. Hope that you're having a good weekend, good day. We're back. It could be Monday morning, Monday afternoon. Um, you know, just chilling. And we're just getting started. So we're gonna talk about whatever's going on. Let me know, let me know, let me know. What you got, what you got. Let me set everything up real quick. Hold it. We're gonna go live. We are live today. We're just getting everything started. We hope that you're having a good weekend. I'm gonna get some stuff going. So let me see what I'm gonna talk about. The question is, who am I gonna pick on today? Who do I want to pick on? Barry Bonds says that so. Interestingly, though, I did get this where Barry Bonds was quoted as saying that if Ken Griffey Jr. didn't get hurt, he said that he would have been the greatest baseball player. Do you agree with that? You agree with that? Well, pretty simple question. You've watched baseball for many years, many eras if you're a baseball fan. And that's something coming from Bonds, who's considered one of the GOATs, if not the GOATs, by a lot of people. Hank Aaron, Willie Mays. Some people say Babe Ruth. All due respect to what you say. But do you agree with him? It's just a yes or no. So, of course, I'm going to be going because it is, we're in the middle of baseball time. And now we got somebody like Shohei Ohtani who's going crazy. And someone might make a case for him. And if he is even the half as good as he stays the duration of his career, so interesting. Interesting. But anyway, yeah, I'd like to get some feedback on that if we will. I'm coming to you live today. I will probably be on for well, depends on what's up. So if we're on for a good while, I might be here for, if I depends on who all comes through. I could be here for like a hour and a half. All depends. We're gonna see what comes through. If not, I'll just do a straight live stream where I talk, and then I'll eventually I put it on, which I do with the podcast. If you want to watch it uncut, and when the podcast is available in the YouTube streets, by all means. What's happening? How you doing? How you doing? Glad to have you on board. Thank you for coming through today. I thought I would do a baseball question related today, so we just yeah, it's live and in color. What's happening? Good to see you. Peace. Tell me where you're coming from. Glad to have you today. And feel free if you got any questions, let's talk about it. Thought I'd do something a little bit different. There's different topics to discuss. That doesn't mean that we can't not address them. It's just that I thought about this particular one because it came on my feeder last night. I saw Barry Bonds and I thought, oh, wow. Bonds gave it up for Griffith Jr. So thought I would definitely converse about that. If you're a baseball fan like myself. And again, I talk about different topics, so it all depends on what randomly. But you know, So we're gonna go through it. Hmm. Now, of course, I think Bonds is a better player than Griffey Jr. because the proof came out in the pudding, but he had to work with. I think if you'd have give Barry Bonds playing with Alex Rodriguez, Randy Johnson, Edgar Martinez, and those guys, he wins a World Series. Looping out, I think they would have won. Griffey Jr. never quite got over the hump. They did get to him American League Championships against Cleveland, which they lost, but he had a way more stacked situation. So that's just my personal opinion. Now, if we're talking about the eyeball test on pure talent, pure skills, Griffey was the kid. He was like a natural. Barnes was a great 5 tool player, but that came over time. He made himself into a better left fielder with his glove work. Of course, he could steal bases and hit for power and average, and then his instincts got better as time went on. But Griffey was like a natural. I mean, he just had a certain aura about him. You know, so it's a good debate. But anyway, I thought I'd throw that out there though. So again, like I said, we're gonna be here for a moment, and we gonna see what comes through. Um, if I get any buzz, I'll stick around. Of course, that was the usual. I have to see what goes on. I wasn't here yesterday because I'm not gonna usually be doing Sundays barn for a while, but I'll be here. Throughout the week. Depends on what kind of vibe is going on. I will probably tomorrow and Wednesday. So I expect 3 or 4 shows during the week. And then, the occasional on the weekend. Depends on what the situations is like. So we'll go from there. But anyway, yeah. They were two of my favorite players in the 90s. Both premiered in the 80s. Bonds 86 with the Pirates. Griffey Jr. 89 with the Mariners. Seems just like yesterday. Both should be in the Hall of Fame. Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. That should be unanimous. That's just ridiculous with baseball. Even if you took away the last 5, 6 years of his career, he was first 400 home run, first 400 stolen bases. He had 2 careers. His careers, it's kind of like Kobe Bryant's situation. He had 2 careers. So, however you size it and seize it up, the man had 2 careers. Very few people you can rip, you know. And he was a dominant player. He was the most dominant player in baseball that I saw because you didn't pitch to him and he made others better. A lot of careers helped out by playing with Bonds. Ask Jeff Kent. He got an MVP by playing with Rich Aruya. I can name guys. They shortchanged him out of 3,000 hits. He was close to getting 3,000 hits. They wouldn't bring him back the year after. Sad state of affairs. The guy's still an instructor and he represents the Giants to this day. So, you know. But anyway, much respect for people who don't think he's humble that he gave Ken Griffey Jr. that love. I think that was commendable. But I'm not going to argue against it because Griffey Jr. was a bad boy. Griffey Jr. was bad to the bone. So you're not going to hear me make no arguments there. No, sir, Bob. No. So, you know, it's all fair. Anyway, it is people just coming from their holiday weekend if they did with everything going on. So we're just gonna be here for a minute, see what's up, and I'll be taking questions and see what people are. And if anybody comes through, like I said, I will do talking. If not, I will make this a short day. We're just gonna be on here and whatnot, see what's happening. I will be here for a while. don't know what will be transpire. If I don't get a lot of reaction, I'll probably just cut it to half hour today. Just thought I would come on and see if anybody wanted to talk live. Sometimes it'd be on there. Sometimes because what goes on with the searches with YouTube, but then sometimes people just, it all depends. So we shall see. It's amazing how that works. Sometimes you get bombarded with a lot, sometimes you get not much. So it all depends. But anyway, um, I will tell people to, you're welcome to come through, give commentary, and I got more videos coming. So, you know, as a matter of fact, we'll see how everything goes because I might have to do a video after I get through with this one. So we will see. But this is a good little question. It's a baseball related. If you're a baseball fan, if you were fans of the 90s and OOs, you'll love this question. If you weren't, you'll just be indifferent to it, you know. But it all depends on how you look at it, you know. These two guys were two of the greatest I ever saw. And baseball had the allure that it once did. This would have been the era where people would have been like really talking. So now, do I agree with what Bond said? You can make a case for Griffey. You can make a case. Now, was he held to a different standard than Bonds? I think people were in awe of his athleticism. I mean, he capped to the back, his whole flair, his whole drama. So it all depends on which way you come out of it. You know, we all have our favorites, and like I said, there's bias, and you know how it is. We just human beings at the end of the day. You know, we have our bias. Sometimes it makes sense, and sometimes it makes no sense. So, you know how it is. What you gonna do? But that's kind of what it is, though. So baseball is one of those kind of sports you can look at a particular era and say, "Oh, I love this. I don't like this. I want this. I don't want this." It all depends on how you look at it. You know, so it makes it for an interesting display of opinions and thoughts. So, yeah, that's how I would look at it. That's how I look at it. I can't speak for nobody else. That's how I look at it, though. So, we all we'll look at it a certain way, and then we'll kind of go along with that. And you know how it will kind of go along in the grand scheme of things. So, but anyway, it's just a baseball related one, and it could be any topic you want today. I hope everybody had a good weekend. Much is going on, much is being said. So we shall see. I know, like I said, I've had quite the week. So we'll pretty much be on for about. Yeah. So yeah, you just never know. Sometimes you get days where it's like nonstop. So I could come on tomorrow and it could hit boom, boom, boom. We'll see. So, but we are alive and well, and we're just here to tell. We wishing everybody so much well. So we're just here to kind of like, you know, take it all into stride. So like I said, I'm right here and just looking forward to everything that's going on. So we'll see. I'll probably be here another 14 minutes. I'm gonna see if anybody want to come through. Um, Pretty low key day, but it happens. I'm no better than nobody. Sometimes you have a lot of people come through. Sometimes you have days where it's not. Well, sometimes I just give commentary and I just talk about the topic that I worked on. So, but Bonds and Griffey never really took off as far as like a rivalry. And kind of like the Maze Aaron. Okay, what's happening? How you doing? Yeah, that is all true. I'm not. Yeah, I agree. Malcolm X talked about it, but the industry creates the facade, and people romanticize the facade, and it gets bought in. It's just like politicians too, just like your local ministers too. You know, I remember people at the end of the day. There was once upon a time where people could buy into the delusion of it. It's not the case no more. Really, was it ever though? But I think that's what the technology has unrevealed the mask of it. Yeah, it all depends on what you're looking for. You want character, or you want some soul, or do you want to get took to the cleaners? It all depends on what you're looking for. But thank you for coming through, Tom. I hope you're having a good day. Appreciate you as always. It's just like I said before, people are always looking to, you know, and it's the sale of the century. It's always selling you on something. So, well, because they ain't ready for what he had to say. you know, and it's mighty funny. He resonates with so many, you know, they can't deny what he said. They keep a lot of them out the books. They keep Medgar Evers out the books. They don't tell you what on with that. It's a lot to keep out the books because, again, a lot of countries been dumped down and been thought to believe a certain thing in a certain way. So if I can play you like you dumb and keep you like you dumb, and I can give you a couple dollars and make you look the other way, what's up? How you doing? Thank you for coming through. I'm here today, and I'm gonna be here as long as I get questions asked. So if anybody says to me, "Well, why you look sleepy or you tired?" Hope you had a good weekend and welcome. I always want questions asked, and that's how you keep the conversation going. Because if I sense that it's kind of dying, I might, and also for the record, I got a lot of videos I've been working on. So if you check my channel and you're keeping up, you'll see that I've been a busy, busy, busy cat. I always got something brewing. I'm not running out no time soon. So you got plenty to work with. If you watch the videos and you want to quote anything and you see something that got your attention, feel free to bring it back too. So Mm, I guess Teenage Mutant Ninja for me. For me. Oh yeah, I don't have no limits. I can go, I go from, various topics. We talk about everything, you know. I just the caliber, the intelligence of the people. That's what I hope to bring and say, hey, open up your mind. You know, let's see where we're gonna go with this. Yeah, Megger was a sad thing. He was going home, and that whole thing that went down. That was after 2 years after the four little girls and the church, in which that anniversary came up recently. See, all this stuff is in the last 60 years. So if you have a parent, uncle, aunt, older cousin, relative, godparent, somebody in the this is all this was they were in their we go back to this, they were in their 20s, you know. So, when you talk about these things, this is not 100 years ago, 80 years ago, it's last 60. And it was very hateful and spiteful. So I just like how people like try to act like, oh well, that's so long ago. Not really. Not if you grew up in a particular era. Mm-mm. When I talk about Black Panthers and Fred Hamptons and all that, all that stuff was tied together. Hmm. And it was only 42 years ago Stevie Wonder was pushing for Happy Birthday to You for Dr. King to be a national holiday, which was 40 years ago. See, we're not in a era all the way up to about 91, 92. Arizona wanted not to have Dr. King included as a holiday. So a lot of this stuff is still fresh. Fresh. I think I just did teenage because it was catchy. I didn't really feel Power Rangers too much. But anyway, good to see the well wishes to everybody. And glad everybody's back. So much going on in the world, so many things to digest and to jump into. So I'm always gonna say the Joker if I gotta play this game. For me, Lex Luthor's probably the more respected though. The Joker would win for me because I liked it what Jack Nicholson did, and I thought Heath Ledger did good. OG didn't mean to throw the concept off of that with those energy. Well, I think Barry Bonds was talking about if he didn't have them because the guy still had 600 home runs. He was an incredible fielder. I mean, I like Griffey Jr. Like, I was just more of a Barry Bonds person. But Griffey Jr. was the kid. I mean, I live near Seattle. And I'm going to tell you something. Russell Wilson run the ring and all that? It's Griffey Jr. town, yo. It ain't even close. All them corny commercial Russell did, it ain't even close. I was a Spider-Man person, if you must know. Comic books as a kid was Spider-Man. But I got respect for all three of them. Superman was the hero. I had Superman action figures. I had action figures of all of them, and I loved the Batman movie, the first one. I watched all that, but Spider-Man was my dog. Tobey Maguire did a pretty good job as Spider-Man. I was more of a Spider, but I respect all three of them. Yeah, and again, I don't really get into superheroes for the simple fact that again, the anime and the animation of them kind of watered it down. I grew up with the comic books. I watched the movies, and some things I like, some things I don't. Like I like the Incredible Hulk. Yeah, Spider Man was my dog. As a matter of fact, I used to watch him on the Electric Company. What's that? It's a No One Knows Who You Are, and he throw that web and catch turkeys. I used to love it. Yeah, that's why I don't really talk about it. Because like when you mention everything today is Marvel, but it's not the Marvel that I once knew. And I understand Stan Lee when they were creating, but it's so different now that they've changed it to, you know, it's taken a different ambiance, and it just doesn't really quite hit the same. Mine is still in the comic books and the way they used to do it. So Batman was cold. I was more of Incredible Hulk. Lou Ferrigno was my dog, yo. Turning green was the thing. Look at my shirt. Turn green. King Kong was bad, except they made it racial though. He started squeezing a white chick in the air and screaming, ah, they did that. But the Hulk, that was a freak. Especially growing up as a kid watching the Hulk. I mean, it was different. Yeah, I ain't lying. It was different. It's such a Jessica Lange back in the day, King Kong, where they would do that. Oh yeah. But the Hulk was something else though. He was a big dude. Lou Ferrigno's still alive too. I always loved that you wouldn't like me if I'm angry. And I love that line. I say, oh, if we all could have that kind of burst. And they hit in two different ways though, in all due respect. I mean, you want to be King Kong because you be the baddest and the biggest, but the Hulk was he just was ferocious. So it's the Wizard of Oz. Come on now. The Wizard's for us. But come on now. That's not even funny. All right, well, y'all really getting into this, and I'm not really that deep, but um Captain America would probably get it, you know. No, I can't say the Wiz. I'm not gonna lie. Look, I like the music. Okay, was okay. The movie was corny. Donna Ross was too old to be playing Dorothy. Michael Jackson had a chance. He showed a little range. Well, I Love Lucy was groundbreaking. I like Mary Poppins as far as the movie, and Bewitched was very clever. Very clever. Probably the cleverest of the three, but I Love Lucy was groundbreaking. I mean, Lucille Ball, Daisy Arnett, I mean, that was groundbreaking. So it's kind of hard to argue against that. But I like Bewitched that I would probably watch over and over again. But I Love Lucy got a story. I was working for a temp agency and I happened to be in the chocolate room where I had to catch cookie, had to carry them on the conveyor. And I was messing up and they was getting all at me. And they said, you want to go get sent home? Stop messing up. So I couldn't tip them. It was tough work. So that always reminded me of that. Lucy was groundbreaking. Carol Burnett was she was like a one woman industry. They've tried others to pull it off, and she, had the right cast and crew, ensemble. They was cutting that stuff live. It's like doing theater. So if you mess up, you're done. So she was bad. So I got a lot of respect for what she did. Harvey Korman and Tim Conway, who's underrated as a Bob Newhart, very underrated, appreciated as a comedian. Their timing was everything. Vicki Lawrence was a very talented artist in her own right. So, oh yeah, just to watch that. Mhm. But I did like the Mary Poppins movies. I went to go see them. I liked them. So you get no arguments. I was more of a Happy Days person, except when Fonz jumped the shark, which was pun intended. But Cheers was cool for Boss and all that, but Happy Days for me. I mean, the Fonz was everything. I mean, you're kidding? That was groundbreaking in itself. A leather jacket, which you may not think of, was considered taboo 50 years ago on TV. He had to wear a white jacket. Kid you not. But Henry Winkler, I mean, to morph into that character, and then of course with Richie Cunningham, which you had a young Ron Howard and what he did. Oh yeah, Sound of Music was a good movie. Yeah. The twirl out in the middle of the fields. Yeah. I always say that running thing was my thing. Yeah, you just mentioned the stuff that I'm very aware of. Julie Andrews. Oh yeah, Patsy Weber. Now that was the first time I was aware of Hollywood keeps them cats looking young, like they 17 when they really pushing 30. That was the first time I was aware of that. That was the first show that hit me to that, and also how the media likes things that's 20 years behind to push it in the time. Because that show was based on the 50s when it came out in the 70s. And they do those sort of things. That's a little game that they do. The Cunninghams. Mrs. Cunningham was cool. Never did care for Scott Bale. He's still chachi to me. He's still cornball. Al's was cool. Yeah. Eh, and it's a trip when I saw Henry Winkler because he's nothing like that character. So you can pull off a character that becomes iconic. I did see him in this movie called The Lords of Flatbush, which came out in '74 with Perry King and the then unknown Sylvester Stallone. So you would be very tripped out. It came a long way. hmm And it was all based on um, Marlon Brando on the waterfront, that whole thing, that whole shtick. Motorcycle gang. James Dean did it. Black leather jackets, jeans, white t-shirts, Yeah. hmm So I saw American Graffiti. Ron Howard was in that movie. Of course, he came a long way from being Opie from the Andy Griffin Show. So, you know, so little facts and figures there. That's all. I used to be a TV junkie. So back in the day when you have as many channels, that's why shows like that lasted 20, 30 years. They were good though. But again, and when they jumped the shark, that was the end of Happy Days. It wasn't the same. Moving on up. Because as much as Good Time's kind of a twisted song. If you listen to the lyrics, it's catchy. But moving on up is like a come on out. Jeanette Dubois, who also was a co-star on Good Times, Valona Wood, co-wrote, sung on Moving On Up. And that became, that's a thing. We actually have people go to this day say moving on up like George and Wheezy. So well, they were ghettoized. They actually were gonna move with Keith and when Thelma and they got the property and JJ hit, but they never did you never did get to catch that part. But if you're talking about the song, I just thought the song was kind of like twisted. That's all. That's just me. Well, some people are now taking this poll, starting to wake up. I think that they're not gonna listen to what Barry Bonds say that if Griffey had have been healthy, and that's because that's a diss to Albert Pujols. That could be considered a diss to Alex Rodriguez. Now you make strong cases. Everybody loves it. Oh yeah, I watched Heart to Heart too. Yeah, I watched all that. All in the Family was like the one that opened up the floodgates. That was the floodgate one. But Vernon Shirley was cool. They had good syncopation with their timing. Carmine and Squiggly. Starsky and Hutch loved the theme song. Tom Scott still bumped that. I'm taking different strokes, but I did like Facts of Life. It was a nice, 80s style, happy go sing lucky song, but different strokes hit for me. Robin Thicke, Alan Thicke. Alan Thicke wrote that song, Robin Thicke's daddy. Now the world don't move to the beat of just one drum. What might be right for some? Sounds Streets of San Francisco was that's Michael Douglas's early Kojak with the Sucker Who Loves You Baby. Rockford Files, especially when Isaac Hayes was like, I didn't ever care for you, Rockfish. Murder She Wrote was great. I watched the reruns to this day. Perry Mason, Madlock, yeah, all them shows were cool. Columbo, Beretta, Mike Hammer, which I still watch, from time to time. Heart to Heart, McMillan and Wife. There's a lot. What's happening? I'm taking Lisa. I like a Stefan talent better, but I got it. Yeah. Mob Squad, yeah. Yeah, I'm taking All Cried Out, but those are two songs I would never even discuss, though. S- well, it depends on what your mood is for a theme song. Depends on what your mood is for a theme song. I mean, there's a lot of them that come to mind, you know. But moving on up, the Jefferson still moves me the most on. Gospel bass, free shuffle, you know. Okay. Yeah, Linda Lavin did a good job. Still got some more to listen to, so got to do it today on my walk. On my walk, KJ. Yeah, of course I do. Linda Lavin was a singer on Broadway. She did all that. The Robert Goulet episode was one of my favorites. My grandmother actually used to have a crush on Vic Tayback and to Kiss My Grits because Flo had a catchphrase. Yeah. What would 80s be like if they had YouTube? The industry wouldn't have been the way it was. Of course I do. Venus Flytrap. Are you kidding me? That's what Tim Reed and Dr. Johnny Fever. I remember all those characters. That's what Lonnie Anderson. I think the 80s would have because, well, I can't say that. I can't say that. I'm gonna tell you why. They thought radio was gonna kill radio. They thought that if you could tape songs off the radio, Michael Jackson saved the industry multiple times, by the way. So I can't say that, but I would have saved a lot of money. But I can't say that the level and the caliber was different. Oh, well, you had Rush Limbaugh. You had a lot of conservative talk. She would have had that. That's nothing's changed with that. It's just that they got the form now. I think that the politics of the journalists would have been more different. Well, yeah, I'll give you that. But did it really make a difference? I mean, they were racist on there, so did it really make a difference? I mean, the bottom line is they were, it was a different vibe. But if you put out good music, we were different type of people than if you had a bad one. Well, MTV was social media for its time. It glued you. It's always been a form. I don't know. Can't say she would have. I don't know. Cause she didn't talk a lot in the 80s. She did the Playboy thing. She did her thing. She didn't really do a lot of talking per se. There are certain things I'm trying to explain this the best way I can. There's certain things that you could have seen that would have happened had you would have had that. And then there's certain things that you would not have, you know. Um, we had technology. Technology was there. We had the satellite dishes, which were set up from when they'd have award shows. Yeah, she talked, but I didn't. Again, Latoya was she was bigger in France. If I told you a story that she wrote three number one songs, A funny story. My grandmother came in. I was in Virginia and she was going, Latoya Jackson hit three number ones in France. I said, that's nice. I said, but this ain't France, though. I said, she sucks over here, but that's nice. Um, well, it's always been $1 million business. That ain't nothing different. Do you not remember Jimmy Swaggart, who just passed? Do you not remember Jim Baker and Tammy Baker? They were in the 80s. There was no internet and they made a chunk of money. And so did the 700 Club with Pat Robertson and the brother who had the cream of wheat fro and Reverend Ike in the 70s. So they didn't need technology. Joel Osteen would have been fine in any era if they put money behind them and Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. I'm present you that. Farrakhan's been the same technology or no. Of course I did. And it was corny. But I did Bet You Gonna Need My Love, and that was my jam off that album that came out in '84. Bet You Gonna Need My, because they had that cold synth burst. It go boom, 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 boom. And I was like, Latoya had a jam. But that old corny Heart Don't Lie was, that was brutal. If You Belong to Toya. Yeah, that was funny. But see, Prince had a crush on her, and he used to follow and stalk her, and they used to hang out, roller skating. But she was messing with Bobby DeBarge and all that. But yeah, Latoya was a bad chick back in the day. Bad. Prince didn't want no royalty check from her though. He said you can keep the money. And Reby did a cover I Feel For You too. So mm, Ruby was even better. Ruby. Reby. Oh, Reby, yeah. Yeah. That would have been so cool. No, it wouldn't have. Because Jermaine was married and he fooling around. And that was, if you ever saw the video for Saving All My Love For You, that was, if you look at the video and you look at that's what it was. Side chick. Prince was gonna marry Latoya. He was just trying to get with her. There wasn't gonna be nothing there. He liked her like the cats liked her in the streets because Latoya was bad back then. Yeah, that was kind of like a lot of twist to that. James got an interview on Halftime Chat right now. If you watch it, Halftime Chat's one of my shows that I watch. She was bad back in the day. Didn't have no talent though. I told you I'm going to today. It's on my must have. So we'll be listening to. I will squeeze it in. I was actually bombarded with some Art of Noise. So the ads will definitely get my play because I was listening to Kano and Art of Noise. So I'll slide it in. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in a day. So sometimes I just, it's not no overlook. I had stuff go on. Told you, had a pretty heavy weekend. So ain't really been up for a lot of listening of anything. Been just trying to listen to what people got to say. It's been some what I call spiritual foyers. People going through some stuff with this whole Trumpican thing and this other stuff. So, but I'll make a point of it to tomorrow for sure, because I'll be on tomorrow. And be back tomorrow, Wednesday. I'll definitely. But anyway, yeah, you can try to think what you want, and I already said to you, if I had some stuff go up, so I ain't gotta go and make no excuses about stuff. But anyway, I'm gonna take the high road. I'm not doing no diss track. So anyway, well, Teddy was huge when I was a kid. It's like Victoria's Secrets. He pretty had a ladies only tour. I don't really put a lot of stock in it though. Uh, Cause I mean, it they all do that eventually. Um, it's still more recognized to some, depends on who you talk to. It depends on who you talk to. He couldn't have done Thriller at the time though, because sonically he wasn't in that space. He had to like be driven to get to that space. Because Off the Wall was more reflective of the period when it came out. So it wouldn't have really he wouldn't have done that. He came up with the sounds and the vibe he came up with. I know what you're saying, but this is the thing. Ain't no girl's mind gonna come out no 79. No, because in the white world was considered too black. He didn't get half the awards, and he was very upset about it. He felt it was a racist agenda. I said I'm gonna do it. I put it off. Not gonna put it off today. I will make a play of it though. I will itch it in. Days be going by fast, and sometimes I get lazy, and I admit it. And I have other things I be doing. Plus, if you follow my channel, I got a ton of videos I put out. So sometimes that's on me for working the load. And I get requests and I put things, I end up doing stuff, but I'm not gonna make those. I'll get it in. I got a lot going on. It's a great question. It's a nice luxury to have if you're Michael Jackson, because it's like being asked if The Godfather, Godfather 2 is the greatest movie. These are the stakes that he's got. So not a lot of people are in his shoes to me, unless you're Stevie Wonder or Miles Davis. There's very few people in his shoes that you can debate which album was best because they both were critically acclaimed, changed the landscape of music, and it showed his dominance. And no other artist, and you can debate it if you want. There's not been another more dominant artist than Michael Jackson in my lifetime. And in the last 40 plus years, I don't think there's another one that's come close because to have an album where uh, have an album where everybody's like 7 out of 9 hit songs. It meant everything for the race and the culture. It meant everything, and it just trained. You can't even begin to fathom that. So he's got a nice problem to have. Not a lot of artists got that problem to have. You know, that's not to rain on people's favors before Prince heads come at me to. But what about 1999 Purple Rain? I said no, it's not the same. It's not the same. Prince had a great transition to what he did with the film, and that enabled him and other things. But it ain't the same what Michael did. Oh yeah, close to it. I mean, I grew with that and that whole thing, all that. Used to rock that. That used to be breakdance movies because they never could. Well, I just can't stop loving you was the closest thing. But let's just say that Clive wasn't gonna let her sing with Michael. It was a PR move, and yeah, she did. And they had a chance, if I think I told you that, the one she did with George Michael, but Michael turned it down because that was the one with Dark Child. So, um, beatbox was the jam. That's where you get your cardboard out. I was about bum, 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 bum. That was the cardboard jam. That one and la da 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 la la la. You know, from 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 uh from Breaking Two. They should, they should, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because if you're all excited about what Timberland did and you like a collage of music, they should be even bigger today. They could probably one of the few acts that could come out today and blow up from back then, just off of beats and what the collage they came up with. They probably even bigger today because that was cutting edge synthesized beats and grooves, just like Mantronics. You could take some of them acts today, a lot of that stuff that came out then that was just grooves and beats, Pet Shop Boys, and you put a groove, that's all it is today. Because people don't be writing out parts and songs no more. Beat you with a beat in the groove. So anyway, but that's the kind of stuff I'll just randomly go dig up something. But I'll throw a curveball at you. The other day I was bumping the Michael Franks. So I was bumping. It wouldn't have worked. But you know who she would sound good with? I was watching the Joe Budden's podcast. If you sped up Anita Baker's voice and you had Michael McDonald and you took his voice down an octave, they sound like syncopated. It's crazy. Anita Baker, Michael McDonald. Jam on it. It's hard for me to pick anything. It's because the Maurice Starr was wicked, yo. Wicked, wicked, wicked. I mean, it's hard for me to pick against it. First of all, Anita wouldn't sing but no Michael Jackson because she was trying to sound more grownish and she would do something with more of a run. So now, oh yeah, they don't. The police. The police were my favorite British UK band in the 80s. Genesis was good. I like some of their stuff, even though Phil Collins and them basically spent a lot of time jacking Earth, Wind and Fire and Howlin' Doja Howlin'. But and they were catchy, but a lot of stuff was catchy. But I'm taking the police in a blowout. Sting and Stuart, because those guys was that, even though that fake ska, that ska, what it did, but it worked. Songs were on point, the grooves were on point. I was a police fan. That's no diss to Phil in them though. And Peter Gabriel either. He said, "Yeah, ouch like ET." That's funny. Yeah, I just like when I listen to this music I grew up with. I like the older stuff before my time too. Well, I don't know, cause the police. Well, look, the police are one of my favorites, man. I don't look at it as that close. Genesis was cool, but like I said, they started jacking all of the LA thing. That's what Phil did a lot of his career. He did that LA studio jacking. They all jack, but it's just the way it was. I just gotta say, well, it's a matter of choices. Don't Disturb This Groove was the cut. Gregory Abbott, Champagne. That was a big song in the 80s. And Tom Brown. Tom Brown is on Facebook, so he's real cool too. I like Genesis, but the police moved me far more. I used to listen to Canary in the Coal Mine. When the world goes running down, that was my jam. When the world is running down, you make hey, boom, 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 boom. I mean, the police just had cuts that I like. Catchy. For me, it's not close. Yeah, I thought Sting was writing really good songs. I like the grooves. For me, the police should have gotten the kind of love that you two got, if you want my honest opinion. Now, you can clown his solo career, you know, if you want to. Even though I think Sting had the first two records were cool. And then if I lose my faith in you. After that, yeah, I don't even touch Sting after 93 solo career. Phil solo career, I like Missed Again. I like a few songs, but then they sound all like he was song jacking. So they both were middle of the road. But it's just The Wardrobe song is my favorite by Genesis. I know what I like, you know. There are a few things I like, but again, I'm not that big on Genesis. Not in totality. The Police just hit me differently, that's all. And I did, because they were with Genesis. I mentioned his solo career. I just said Missed Again. Missed Again was my song. I love them horns on that. He took the Earth, Wind, and Fire, Two Hearts. You know, he dragged Holland, Doja Holland. If you pay attention to me, I already mentioned it. I did. Phil's career was with Genesis. He replaced um, Peter Gabriel. Sledgehammer was huge. Loved Hall and Oates. Obviously, Sarah Smile was the jam. Can't go for that. Kiss on my list. Rich Girl. They're catchy songs. Wait for Me is one of my underrated cuts by them. MTV was, I don't know about that. BET came out in 80. So I don't know about VH1. Throwing it all away didn't do much for me. A Land of Confusion, I like the puppet videos. Again, I wasn't, again, take some of that stuff was just, to me, was middle of the road. You know, when it hit. Well, some of the stuff I just wasn't feeling it. You know, some things I just was like indifferent to. So it's all depends on who we, you know. But if you're a Genesis fan, more power to you. I'm not gonna say nothing. I just wasn't, you know, compared them to Police. I didn't quite feel it the same. It just didn't hit me the same. Making something out of nothing. I'm making that a misunderstanding. I dug AWB. Schoolboy Crush was the cut though, y'all. That bass was wicked. Mama was alright. I just didn't really care for Misunderstanding because it reminded me of Toto. Understanding. Because it reminded me of Hold the Line. A lot of these songs sound like song jacks. And a lot of people do it. It's just that I don't know. I didn't really get a lot of depth out of it. I thought Phil could play drums. He was a rhythmic cat. I'll say this about Phil Collins. I like Phil. And he was the more talented version of everything that Justin Timberlake never was. I'll say it the best way I can. But I could almost see like a kindred spirit in terms of Jack and songs and material. There are things I like. But AWB was bad. Queen of My Soul, Love of Your Own, Person to Person. Mhm. They had a cool sax groove thing going. Got the Love was my jam. I like the AWB. They're in my top 15 greatest funk bands ever. Yeah, they make my top 15, 20. Mhm. Okay. All right. Oh, we definitely warmed up today, and I think we did pretty good. See what time it is. I think I'm gonna go call it a day though. Think we just about hit the apex today. I think I'm gonna go with Sun on that one. I like Get Up, Get On, Get Down, but I like it's not the strongest brass construction song. They about in the same tier for me too. Yeah, because there was a woman named Millie Jackson. There was a woman named Donna Summer. Madonna ain't the first of what she did. She just a white girl that blew up doing it. That's all. There were black women doing the same thing Madonna had already done. They just didn't have the fanfare. That's all. Madonna came out after Vanity too. The Good Call on Grace Jones. Even though Grace didn't, it was more of a niche though. She didn't have that kind of appeal. So Donna Summers would be my argument. And then you forgot about Deborah Harry from Blondie. But again, that wouldn't infiltrate Little Kim as much as Millie Jackson. Because Millie was more that what Little Kim was going for, not so much Grace. So I mean, if we wanted to take it back, we could actually say Josephine Baker with the bananas. So, it all depends on which how you want to do it. But anyway, I got to take Sun on that one. They're about in the same tier for me. Though I love moving. That was a great one. And Can You See the Light? But I was just trying a few songs I bumped to, but I wasn't like that. Appreciate you. Thank you, Tom, for coming through. Appreciate everybody that came through. I think it's been a really great day. And again, I'll be back on tomorrow. I'll be on tomorrow. Glad everybody came through today, though. Now, Madonna was crossed, though. Oh, that's gonna be Sheena Easton for that one. That's not even. You got to come up with something like Howard Kemp was a cute act. Give me someone like Taylor Dane. If you're gonna mention someone, that's not gonna be. Or what's her I can't think of her name right now. That would have been a good battle. You know, but Love Me was more catchier. Madonna, Marilyn Monroe was romanticized, but I wasn't around to. I can't really, you know. But Marilyn Monroe, when she got, yeah, but still, that would have given more of a balance because I Always Love You was a strong song against Sheena Easton. Madonna was. Monroe got the blonde and that ran with it. Madonna was more direct with it. So it's two different entities and they hit differently. Monroe had her lights turned out with it though. So we'll never know. But she knew a lot. Can't think of who I was thinking about. Kathy Dennis. That's who I was. Kathy Dennis. That would have been a good argument against Sheena Easton. I liked Sheena Easton working with Prince and working with Babyface, but she had no choice because Marilyn was a marginal actress who had a lot of charisma and personality, but she messed with the wrong shoulders. She got in with the higher ups, and she was actually arm candy. What's happening? How you doing? Good to see you. She paid a price, so that's the trade off that she had to make. So Sometimes you gotta pay that price though. That's what it was. Okay, let's get some conversation, or I will, we'll see. Well, they all thirsty. That's kind of the Captain Obvious. They all thirsty. You only as good as who gonna put money on you, and you know what the game is about. And Madonna had to play ball just like everybody else did. She did nothing different than what Donna Ross did or what Mariah Carey did. Tell me what was different, or Barbara Streisand did. Tell me what's different. Madonna and me were cool from about 83 to about 94. Well, they all about themselves. What's different with that? Show me an artist who blows up who ain't about themselves, and I'll show you an artist who was or never was. They all about themselves. You have to have that kind of ego because the industry indulges that arrogance. If Madonna hadn't been Madonna, she wouldn't have blew up. She'd have probably had a Cindy Lauper career, or probably would have been like seen like Laura Brand again. Most of them don't. They did do a duet. It's called Love Song. It was kind of weak song. Came out on her like a prayer album. Actually, Prince played guitar on that song and Keep It Together. He was all on that record. They did work together. Mixed results. Mixed results. Because she wasn't gonna get pimped by what he does, and he wasn't gonna play her game. But they had interesting twist dynamic. And it didn't really do nothing. Love Song was not that memorable. It just sounded like a standard Prince throwaway song. He got on a drum machine. It didn't really do much for me. I like Bedtime Stories in 94, and she worked with Dallas Austin, and she, I thought it was a good record. I liked her song Human Nature, and Secret was a cool song. I like that. Red Light Grew on Me, the title song was all right. Not crazy about it, it was all right. That's the last thing by Madonna that I can tolerate and stomach. I ain't paid her no mind after 97. So, like I said, 30 years ago, almost 30. I ain't paid her no mind after 98. She had a great run though. Listen, she had the career that Lady Gaga wishes she had. Gaga's a more talented version of Madonna, but she ain't got Madonna's goods. Big difference. And if you don't know how to use it, you lose it. So that's how I look at it. I don't pay him no mind. I didn't care for nothing after Velvet Rope. I thought the stuff's been streaky and pitchy. For me, That's the Way Love Goes, the last song she did that knocked my socks off. You know, she had hits that I bopped to, but I still think she did her best work from 86 to about 94, 95. To me, that was her peak and prime. Um, the stuff without Jam and Lewis didn't really do much for me. I didn't care for it. Like nothing she did with, you know, I didn't care for it. That was corny to me. Calvin, I'm going to have to go with Rick Springfield. Jack and Diana was catchy because that little hip hop beat, but Springfield had the catchier song. He had a couple songs I liked. John Cougar had the better career, but Springfield had, Invisible Touch and Jesse's Girl with my jams. Jack and Diana was good storytelling, but Rick had a catchy song. And then that was it. I just don't really sweat Janet Jackson's material the last 25 years. I think she hit her, I think she hit her peak and her prime was 86 to 95 to me. And she had a real good run. And enough where she should have been, but a lot of that stuff that came out the last 15, 20 years, I wouldn't even listen to it twice. Whereas Control Rhythm Nation, she still had some songs here and there, but nothing like, I mean, there's a difference between peak and prime. And you know, I don't even waste my time with it because Jermaine Dupri he did his best stuff for Mariah Carey. Him and Janet had no musical chemistry at all. And again, he's a good producer, but I'm gonna go to OMD on that one. But I like Depeche better, but I gotta give OMD that one on that one. Yeah, it just didn't fit. It just didn't fit. Well, he don't have the musical landscape that Jimmy Jam did. And sometimes you gotta have the right songs and the vibe. You know, and he's too teeny for us, so the music's too teeny. So all right. They were cool. I listened to that lead singer passed, and I listened to that stuff back in the 90s. It's not about hip hop. She's gotta have someone who knows how to write some songs. It's got nothing to do about hip hop. If you listen to he remixed Anytime, Any Place. That remix was fire. That came out in 93. Cranberries were, when the Irish groups thing, that was cool. I think I probably listened to Natalie Merchant though and them more though. But Cranberries was cool. That was cool for a moment. For a moment. Yeah. She did have 24 play on her greatest hits album. Would have been interesting if she had to work with Kills. Because anytime, any place, the remix was sick though. He definitely laced that. Zombie was catchy. Well, Janet worked with Busta Rhymes and she worked with, Linger was the cut. It's just that we don't talk about the Cranberries, that's all. They were kinda like an act that had something, and then it kinda sometimes you have acts that you like in the moment, and then they never come back for different reasons. It's not bad, it's just ironically, it didn't linger in the landscape. I'm gonna go to Cocoa 2 Twins, and they were good. When I back in the day, I told you the Stones, and then I would have probably told you the Chambers Brothers, because they were rocking. Because time was played a whole lot back then. So there you go. Well, I talk music. Music's a whole different animal. How I hit with music and how I connect the dots. So when you talk about that, you're gonna get different answers. because that's an acts that I listened to that I was familiar with. It's like when I heard Little Richard, that was rock. It wasn't a song. The the it was the Hard Knock Life. It really that was the crossover, but Can I Get a was the street song. It wasn't no album. I know some people in the East Coast say Reasonable Doubt. It was really the songs because he hit with songs. So it depends on where you lived. I lived on West Coast at the time. It wasn't until Can I Get Up? That's what got him because the Annie Hard Knock was the crossover, but Can I Get Up was the one. Ain't no one with him in Foxy was a hit 30 years ago, but it was Sunshine didn't hit. I like Pearl Jam, but I was more of a Soundgarden fan. Out the Seattle scene. Out the Seattle scene. I was more Pearl Jam. I mean, I was more Soundgarden because Chris Cornell was one of my favorite vocalists. But I was familiar with that whole scene: Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Mudhoney, Alice in Chains. Alice in Chains had a couple jams. They used to play them on the dance floor. Mhm. Eddie Vedder had it going on for a moment. And there were a lot of Pearl Jam type of clone acts. I remember Stone Temple Pilot. That Pearl Jam style was influential. I don't know. You tell me. Did see again when you ask a question like that, who is he iconic for? There are people who are Jay-Z fans who might say Reasonable Doubt. They depends. Depends. I just don't really feel that he had anything. He did. They came to the games to go. Yep, I remember Screaming Trees. They came to the games in the when the Sonics played the Bulls. Because Eddie Vedder's from Chicago. Rodman was huge. Oh yeah, I loved all that. Screaming Trees was big. Silver Chair, all that. Mm-hmm. That was a lot. Of course, one of my favorite bands back then was Living Color. They just did Tiny Desk, which they tore butt up. They never got their due. They still tear butt up though. They still can sing, play live. Mhm. Depends on who you into though. Fishbone was one of the sickest bands. Just didn't blow up. The Chili Peppers got their love. Just didn't happen. So, of course, I remember Slaughter, Mike Slaughter. They were around 80s headbangers ball. Next, you gonna ask me if I do. I remember when Motley Crue was around them and Cinderella and all that. I remember all those acts. Winger, uh, uh, a lot of them bands. Well, because I don't get asked this, you gotta remember. See, I be playing. You gotta remember, I'm an R&B dude, but we have conversation. I can turn on the next knob. I used to watch Headbangers Ball with Matt, the bald head dude used to host the show. I was up on it. White Snake, yeah. The David Coverdale and his girlfriend Tony, the one that was in the video used to mess with OJ. Yeah, they were a broke Led Zeppelin. That's why they blew up. Stereotype, Ain't No Lover Boy. Lover Color had jams, yo. Cult of Personality still be rocking. Oh yeah, I gotta keep up. Yeah. Pyromania. The funniest thing about Def Leppard, they were big in the 80s. Funny Vibe was the cut about the in the purse. I'm fierce. Uh, they were big when Michael Jackson. They always had an album in the 80s. Pour Some Sugar on Me, Power, uh, um, Photograph, all that. And they were big. They were kind of like the Garth Brooks of rock, though. They sold a lot of records. I only saw a few people that really, but they were huge. And then they came out when they came back with the drum after the car accident, he's doing the one drum. He's tight. They had a couple interesting cuts in the 90s, but they got kind of typecast. They were actually a decent band, you know. So mhm. Yeah, I can't think of who I was gonna think of. Rat was real big in the 80s too. And of course with Guns N' Roses blew all up, but the whole LA scene, Megadeth, all that. Yep. No, that's a lie. That's a lie. You're disrespecting Chuck Berry. What do you think black folks was rocking way before there was living color? In fact, Quincy Jones was talking about Lionel Hampton when he used to play vibes. That was the start of rock and roll in the 30s and the 40s. Living Color didn't even really reach their full zenith. And did you ever hear of a guy named Jimi Hendrix and Band of Gypsies? I mean, come on, man. Don't say that. Please don't say that. Sly and the Family Stone would be considered rock. The Chambers Brothers would be considered rock. I mean, come on now. Don't say that. Living Color is talent because folks support them and dig their talent. They never got their due. And then there was other rock bands that were black. They just never got it. Yeah, you got to do some listening because that was the origins of it. There was a whole world of it before. A whole world. Parliament Funkadelic. Listen to Eddie Hazel on Maggot Brain and get back to me. Listen to Ernie Isley on Who's That Lady guitar soloing. Listen to Ernie Isley on Summer Breeze. Took that from Seals and Cross. Enlighten yourself before you say that because Living Color didn't even. First of all, they got big, but they weren't even as big as they should have. And there's another band that Eddie Murphy used to be a silver called the Bus Boys. Those cats could rock too. Never got they do. Xavier and I did. Yep. And Eric Gale band. That brother from Memphis is a bad cat. That cat can play. Yep. Yeah, well, Eddie Hayes on guitar. You didn't listen to his solos before Mike Hampton. Fishbone, I already mentioned Fishbone. Everyday Sunshine, very Sly and the Family Stones progressive. It's a lot of them. Can't answer that because he, first of all, he switched up. If you remember his career, he switched up from Jimi Hendrix Experience to Band of Gypsies. So he had already did something like that. Now him and hip hop would have been interesting, but he had already switched up his whole lane. So I can't say that. Even though Steven Tyler is a light skinned brother, DNA, but he cookie coated on TV. I don't know. I don't know. He was a groundbreaker. He was the Jackie Robinson of country, but he had to sell his soul. Though that's the sad part. He could hang in there with him. He could hang in there with him. He had the tone and the phrasing. It's just a shame of how it all went, and he never got his full due. Because last I checked, Nashville's part of America, but that ain't the Grand Ole Opry. Is like the Grand Ole Wizardry. Brother should have got more love. That's a travesty. He was great though, and just like Ray Charles. They did country. That's why people don't understand the totality. Because country ain't nothing but R&B and gospel turned off key and out of tune. That twang thing ain't in key. Stick electric guitar, electric keyboard on. It's the same thing. It's gotten whitewashed. Pride had talent, but he was trying to be like a black version of George Jones. Tone wise, the same. But yeah, well, they show you how racist it is. The industry's very racist and segregated. Ain't nothing new. She didn't even really give it the full whack though, as far as doing it though. She did a part of it, but that's not the case in the point. Music shouldn't have no limits. First of all, country music is black music, but that's another story, another time. They already had an album out back in '94 called Rhythm Meets Country. Check it out. Listen to Gladys Knight. Listen to Vince Gill, who I liked a whole lot. It's gospel music meets the blues. That's what country is. If you listen to old Robert Johnson, Elmore James, blindly, if you listen to old blues guitarists, get back to me. That's all it is. When you hear old Eric Clapton records and the Rolling Stones singing Angie, and they're trying to emulate the stuff from Muddy Waters and John Lee Hooker. That's what they're doing. That's why they come off sounding country. Well, so if you listen to the Ohio players, Sweet Sticky Thing, or Fire, when you listen to that to Sugarfoot vocals and you put that on, that's the same thing. It's just that they gave it a name. That's all it is. I put a steel pedal guitar on some of these people, you'd be very surprised. But again, guess who? These eyes. I like these eyes. That was a cut. Well, country now is more like doing broke hip hop. That's what they doing. And some of them country songs I hear, Cletus T. Judd, who did some parody stuff, could put a hip hop beat on some of them. I mean, they running out because they're not getting to the roots. They're trying to, you know. But I mean, it's been open season for decades. Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton made it open season. So okay, I got about 4 more minutes before I go because I gotta go eat. I've been on for an hour and a half. I got 4 more minutes. 4 more minutes. That's fine. I just like the vocal about these eyes. There's something about that. It puts me in a certain frame of mind. That's all. But Three Dog Night had nice harmony though. I'm not even gonna argue with that. They had this. That's the thing about those old folky type of 60s, 70s, like Peter Paul and Mary. Like them harmonies will sneak up on you. You're not expecting it to be that enriching, engaging, and it's like that's not bad. Oh yeah, that Southern soul, because that's what they was like the Atlantic rhythm section. Like you hear certain of those acts, classical, but it has though, because Beethoven had black in him, and there were black composers, but they don't tell you the truth. But you can't integrate what I call instrumental music, but you lets you sonically, with a rhythm cadence. So that's how. That's the one that most will tell you. But you know, it's been whitewashed though. When you do your studies on the music, you do research, you'll understand exactly what I'm saying. Ain't nothing that's not been touched with black folks. She fell off, and the problem that yeah, Ruben that's what inspired Smokey Robinson's Cruising. It was a catchy little tone. Braxton's problem, her best stuff was with Babyface, and when she had R. Kelly doing a couple things, but with Babyface and her, they were inseparable. Love that record they did together. She still could come back with something, but she'd have to have the right person right for her. And Face is the only one they fit. Like they're like a husband and wife that just didn't know it. You know. Yeah, but the only problem with Tamar is that she don't have no depth though. She didn't get the budget and she get the right songs. Tony hit, you know. I don't think LA and Babyface made the mistake when they picked her out of the group. But Tamar does have a nice tone, but wrong audience though. Wrong audience. No, Tony. If Tony and Babyface did another record right now and came correct, they would hit. Cause I know Baby Williams ain't gonna hardly put no music on her. Well, for me, well, neither one of them are the greatest, but if I had to pick out the two, I probably would give Nas the edge. I think he moved me more overall. Um, Pac was more had depth, but Nas he hit. I think Nas had an edge, but I think they could, I think they consider two of the greatest. But Nas's lyrical content skill was sick. Pac had ability to storytell, but I like Nas more though. I'm sorry. Nas came up when Nas to me would be more closer to Rakim than Tupac. Pac was a great poet and he could write. And I think the mythology of him, but Nas was Pac never had a rocket that came out like Illmatic. Nas came out the gate like he made a name. I think Pac had better hits though. I'll give you that. But if I'm listening to Ether, for instance, Ether, I never cared for Biggie's diss track. I mean Pac's diss track. I thought Nas had one of the coldest. Ether alone. Pac ain't never hit nothing like Ether. And I like Pac a lot. But Nas, the diss track, woo. Mm. So it all depends on how I hit you. That's all. But they both would be like top 10, and I'd have Nas probably about my top five. No. Rakim got Nas beat for lyrical. Lupe Fiasco never had no real career like that. I like Lupe all right, but Lupe would be kind of like what Common is in that tier, or Most Def if you want to go that route. I can't put him in the tier with Nas. Anyone you want. I'm taking Scarface. My block still hits, and he a very talented dude. Anyone you want with hip hop because hip hop, you again, you're like matching spots and spots. It went great with jazz. It go great with rock. It go great with anything if you want to put it. It all depends on who's putting it down as production. It all depends on who's executing it. That's all. The Nappy Roots. That's funny you mentioned them because I ain't heard that name about since was it that Bush's daughter was messing with one of them or something. It was crazy. That was like a long time ago. Too many to name. Too many. Too many. And I ain't got that kind of time to be here all night. There's a lot of bad albums. Sometimes it's just the song suck or the talent ain't there or it was, you know, mixed wrong. It's a lot of different factors. It's not something you really want to even talk about because that's one of them things you just want to kind of like look to the side and play it off like you don't even know that that ever existed. But there's a lot of them. The good news is that we're moving away from an era where you can think like that because that's what streaming and everything kind of took it away. I'm not lying. Believe me, if you spent $20, you don't want to ever tell nobody and you got stuck with the bad version. I'm just saying. We were there back in the day. Yeah. Oh yeah. Bob Dylan had "We Gotta Serve Somebody" and he did that's all gospel rock. That's I said classical music would be the one because it'd be instrumental. But any other genres would get well, she only had a one hit wonder. No one talks about her. It was because he sold the one song. Well, I don't be honest with you. Most of Prince's works after '88 would almost fall in that for me. But I wouldn't put Prince in the same boat with Ice Spice and Vanilla Ice, though. But it's just that, yes, yes, Charlene. I'm already went through. Yes, 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 yes. There was a band called Return to Forever, and then there was a whole band that Joe McLaughlin. If you listen to old jazz in the '70s, rock jazz fusion, and this is a group called Jazz is Dead. They did a Grateful Dead mix with jazz. Check it out. Nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun. As a fact, Miles Davis is he had quite a few records that would loan themselves to that direction. Hmm. Listen to Jack Johnson, his album Jack Johnson. Miles had that mix going, especially when he had the guitarist John McLaughlin. Not really. I'll tell you why. Because a lot of people be acting. The thing about it is music sells character. It's just like the movies. You see the facade, you don't know who the people are. And he from Oakland. He was the Hammer. He got his nickname from Hank Aaron. He was a bad boy for the Oakland A's. But it's the character. You buy into the character. You don't know. A lot of the ones that play soft on TV is really was hard, and the ones that played hard on TV were really soft. It's a lot of acting. That's why they had stage names. It's Hollywood. It's marketing. You know, a lot of the agencies. I keep trying to tell people like this industry creates facades and images. A lot of people work for these ad agencies. It's a go to school PR charm. And a lot of them share the same. There is agencies. You get a tool which of what you're going to be. They give you a stage name, they give you an imagery. It's like a how to. Nobody that's coming along now should buy into these images. We're coming along, yes, because we didn't know. The game is open now, so it's not like you can. Ain't nobody gonna come along now that you're gonna see and not pick up on the Hollywood game because they don't make the stars no more the same because they don't have that no more. God, I guess Full Force by only because that was a latter song. That's not something that I would talk about because Full Force ain't on the Daz Band's level, but by the show. I'm gonna go with Rain, but TLC had was the better group, but I'm gonna go with Rain. I like the horn chart on Creep. That's Dallas Austin production, but I'm gonna go with Rain. I only like it because of the horn part. It was kind of catchy, but it wasn't even one of the songs I remember on that record. Only because of the horn stab is the only thing I liked about Creep. T Boss had that Prince thing going, so I Creep. Ah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had a great conversation. I mean, no doubt. I don't usually get picked like this about different music, so that's why it may be new to you. But yeah, the thing about it is, I will tell anybody a lot of these entertainers that you see, they go through these agencies and they, you thinking that they something and they completely different. And it's always been the game because Hollywood's the music start off as studios, the movie studios, and that's what they do. No. But I did like that watermelon video that cracked me up. He's lighting the cakes as an artist. He's lighting the cakes. He is homogenized, not the deepest singer, not the, they trying to act like they trying to buoy him, trying to act like they're trying to give him something that's not really there. He just but that watermelon video cracked me up, I'll give him that. But he doesn't really have any depth though. He's one of those guys that they're gonna have awards and, you know, tell you that his career was bigger than it was. Well, he's the one that they wanted to. Simon Cowell didn't make no mistakes. He's the one they put the money on. But none of those boy groups really have showed me anything. Of course, she Lee. Come on now, you gotta do better than that. If you brought up mechanical emotion, or if you brought up under the influence, that's not gonna touch Oliver's house. The bass was sick in Oliver's house. Still wonder who Oliver was though. Prince was throwing them titles out back then though. But yeah, Oliver's house in a blowout. I haven't listened to that track in a long time. Think I did back in '09. I was out for a Saturday walk to the store. Yeah. They don't really rap about I would think about going to a different country, you know, finding their finding some spiritual freedom. Mhm. Doesn't come out in the music. That's a good question, but we don't live in a day and time when you're gonna get artists saying that no more though. Rock with you. Come on now. You're not winning that one. And I love Luther too, and that's a great Luther song, but come on now, rock with you. Come on now. The tempo alone gives Michael the edge. Well, Scarface did do with a lot of his inner, because he was talking about his being. But generally speaking, in a modern context, you don't really get a lot of it though. Oh, I like Lover Too Much. That was a sick bass line and all that, but Rock With You is a standard, yo. That's you're not beating Michael with that. You got too many things going for Rock With You. Mm-mm. And I did love Never Too Much because I still listen to it to this. I listen to both of them, but no. Um, she got handled the wrong way, and she kind of came across like a broke Whitney who sounded ended up making herself into a lounge act. And to me, it's got the same problem that Shantae Moore's got. It's not the lack of talent; it's just that you end up doing hook work or you're doing second, third timey work with people no one really put a project around you. They gave you a hit song, but you never had what I call 3 or 4 songs on a record, and you got lost in the food chain. That's what happened to her. Look good, could sound good, but didn't have the right material. And an act like that who only gets a piece of a song here and a piece of a song there gets lost in the shuffle. And also who you messing with. There's a lot of factors involved. So to me, it was almost set up kind of like Mickey Howard was set up, kind of like how um, Regina Bell was. It's kind of like those kind of sisters. And you get typecast. Kind of like what happened to Deborah Cox, Donna Summer. But it's close, though. It's close. I did love Love Hangover, but that was inspired to Love You Baby because Donna Summer changed the game. But on the radio, it was called Love. It puts me in a certain frame of mind. Donna Summer was one of the baddest acts that never got her full due. Okay, I'm gonna go in about 2 minutes, so that's for sure. 2 more minutes. Two. Well, she just had the fingernails overset, and she didn't have anyone push her with the solo because she didn't really look like a solo act. Who was gonna work with her? Yeah, you can sing. That doesn't mean that you're gonna blow up. Doesn't mean anything. Well, there's a lot of underdogs. It's a lot of factors that go into making a career, and sometimes it's who you messing with, who they gonna put some money on you, and there's a lot of factors. It's not just based on talent. I think you would understand it that now that it ain't based on talent. Coco sings circles around Alicia Keys. Was she gonna get Alicia Keys' budget? I'll get ready to go in just a couple minutes, Dakota, but I'll end what's happening with you. It was decent. It was decent. Nothing special because Bill Bellamy's a third, fourth tier comedian. It was cute. It was all right. It was all right. Nothing special. I don't really even think about it. It comes on. It's not something that I break my neck thinking about. Yeah, it's all right. she's marginal to me. I don't hear nothing about Billie Eilish that I even remotely think is interesting. She gets these token awards. She's an okay artist. Nothing special. Yeah, you know. Like I said before, to each and their own, but I don't hear nothing special about Billie Eilish. You know. Yeah. Yeah, I'm out Billie Eilish. I don't hear anything special about Billie Eilish. I think she's okay. I don't hear anything that I get like, oh, I gotta go get that. I just think she's an okay artist. She's okay to me. Yeah, she done won all these awards and but I ain't heard nothing that mm-mm. I don't think her voice is that distinctive and I don't think her musicianship is that distinctive. I think she's okay. Overrated. Nothing that I heard that I go, oh, you know. I just don't think that it's that strong. But again, people are entitled to opinions and stuff. So but anyway, I'm gonna get ready to call it a day. I'll be back tomorrow. I will be a little bit earlier tomorrow because I gotta head out tomorrow about time. Appreciate it when it came through. We had a great discussion. If everybody wants to come through tomorrow, let's do it again. And look for me around. So appreciate everybody. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free. Thank you always. Peace. I'm out.